doing DeFi, greatest in the world, and they finally about to see why. What you know about XRD? I'm smart money, I ain't never on a decline. What you know about NFTs? It's not just Ace, when you finally gonna realize you need scalability, need more utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline, building the future, I feel like a savage.
Hello and welcome. I am Piers, CEO of RDX Works, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol, Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. This is our podcast, the DeFi Download, a show about decentralized finance and all things crypto, where we dive into the details of the projects, assets, and services that are powering the DeFi revolution. Today, I have Evgeny, CEO and co-founder of Zerion. Zerion is aiming to build the best self-custodial wallet for web3 citizens. Zerion already has over 100,000 users that have downloaded and used the Zerion Wallet since June of 2022, has done over 600,000 transactions through those wallets, and over $1.5 billion of volume have already flowed through Zerion. Evgeny, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Piers, and thanks for a warm welcome. Excited to be on the podcast.
So this concept of like crypto wallet UX sucking, I think is sort of starting to have its moment now, right? This is something that we've seen sort of some hacks recently around with was it Ken Rose who lost like $1.4 million worth of his NFTs.
Yeah.
So like talk a little bit about how the idea for Zerion came about. Why did you guys decide to build it?
Yeah, definitely. So Zerion has like a pretty long history, and the evolution of Zerion was actually following, I would say, the evolution of the whole crypto space. So as we've started in 2019, the space was completely different, and obviously not many people were yet thinking about the UX, but we instantly thought that even if we want to get people to start using DeFi in the first place, we still need to work on the interface side of things. So a lot of people were obviously focused on the protocols, which makes a lot of sense because you need to have them secure in order for everything to function. But at the same time, if we want to get any kind of adoption, we need to go past a certain threshold on the UX level. So I would say we've been historically forever focused on the UX side of things. And the recent evolution and our basically movement into the wallet space was primarily driven by the user experience. So we've been focused on getting as close to the user in terms of making the transaction. And the wallet is, I would say, the essence of the whole thing, because the wallet controls the whole signing flow. It controls the security of your interactions with blockchain. It controls whatever you see in terms of what assets you have within the wallet. For us, that's a very important piece of the whole stack, and we think that we've been working towards that user experience and making it the best, essentially, user experience, and we can definitely compete on the wallet side for sure.
So what were the key insights that, when you surveyed the market at the time that you were thinking about coming to market? I mean, obviously Trust Wallet already out there, MetaMask already out there, and sort of countless other sort of wallets that were being built for either niche applications or wider. What did you see that you could bring that was different to the wallet space?
Do you mean like now or in 2019?
No, so you obviously in 2019 you were doing the aggregator, right? And then
right.
And it was only recently that you guys started doing the wallet. So when you decided to do the wallet, obviously you realized that getting closer to the user was a good thing. But from the point of view of what can you actually what benefits can you provide to the user? What did you see as the opportunity there?
Yeah, so definitely. So we've been first off, a lot of users were already kind of big fans of Zerion, even if no matter what kind of wallet they had. So that could have been MetaMask or even, I don't know, ledgers. You still needed some way and some interface to understand what's in your wallet, what kind of transactions you've been doing. You need to make the best trade across DEXs, and Zerion was able to help with all of these things before. So a very natural move for us, instead of making the user kind of like go through the pain of signing the transaction, and especially that was visible on mobile, and that's why we started with mobile, because people had to jump between different applications. You would have, the Wallet Connect, which would not always work. So luckily we have Wallet Connect V2 that is slowly rolling out. So hopefully that's going to fix some of the issues. But it was still pretty visible that the flow of working with wallets, and especially with dApps, was pretty broken. Users were completely lost. All these existing wallets were lagging on showing assets, on notifying the user about the potential problems with maybe like what kind of allowances they have given on Ethereum. So all of the specifics, I would say, and especially for users who are, we call them web3 citizens, so people who actually spend time doing things within the web3 ecosystem. So for all of these users, it's a constant pain. And we thought that there's a lot of things we could bring already. And at the same time, we think we could innovate and help the user who actually spends time not suffer as much and enjoy the whole, the new web.
And why do you think this is so important? Like, what was the why is the user experience of crypto so broken, in your opinion? And like, why is it important to fix it?
Actually, on this point, I wouldn't even say that it's like broken. So honestly, my perception is that in principle, or at least like in theory or philosophy, the experience of Web3 is just amazing, in the sense that all of the data is centered around the user rather than the platforms that are accumulating this data. So this control, it's kind of like this email experience that we still enjoy, but scaled to any kind of product, including financial products as well as like other parts of your internet experience. So from the philosophical standpoint, I think it's amazing, and for the user, like I don't know how many of our listeners have tried different email clients, but I've tried maybe about 10 of them, and I was able to find the best one that works really well for me. And then the same applies to, say, calendar applications. So they all work seamlessly. You can plug in any kind of interface on top of your calendar data, and that creates an amazing user experience, and people can choose. So same goes to the whole Web3 experience, and that's why I think it's very much important for wallets to recognize that in the first place and make the best UX, because now we can have a free competition about how that looks, and I think in the end the user wins, and the user would start picking the wallet interfaces that work best for them. So
it's a really interesting point. I think it's a really interesting point where the protocol provides the standard interfaces for applications and user experiences to be created, and essentially by pulling out the database and putting that onto a shared platform, you're now the user experience becomes a lot more flexible. You can now you can now create many different possibilities for that user experience. So that's a really interesting way of looking at it. So it certainly increases competition. It makes sort of users less. It has less user lock-in. I can essentially just decide, no, I don't want this wallet today. I want that wallet, and they can move, as quickly as it takes to transfer assets. So, like, how do you look at that from the point of view of a CEO as a long-term business opportunity and an ability to create a protective moat around that?
Definitely. So. I think you're right that kind of like on the surface, it looks like it creates a lot of potential movement between one interface to the other. At the same time, I think first off, it's a much more fair system, and people respect that. So the fact that they're able to move already convinces them to continue using the product. So this fact that they have this liberty of their own, like choosing their own path, in and of itself, I think creates some moat. And I've seen that, like, for example, with like Superhuman, right, an email client, people are even paying for it, and that's completely fine. So it's their option, and it's definitely good. At the same time, you can look at different, say, like banks as an example. So banks, you can kind of easily transfer the money from one bank to the other. So nothing is stopping you from doing that. But the trust that you build with a certain application is, I think, primal, and basically you understand the product better. You are getting used to the interface, and you just tend to start liking the interface. So that that takes time, obviously, but I think that's better than being locked in completely without an ability to quit, like with Facebook, for example. So you don't even have an option to migrate all of the followers or move all of your posts, because you're going to miss the whole network is going to you won't transfer the whole network essentially. So that's the take.
It's an interesting argument. So like you're saying that you don't think that there will be a standardization of user experience, that there will be many different options for user experience and they'll specialize in, and then people will be like, that's my preferred way of using. So I'm going to, sort of the way that people go and use Macs versus Windows or Windows versus Macs, they get used to an operating system and then they don't want anything else because it allows them to operate most quickly in that environment versus the other one.
Yeah, I really hope so. I really hope that this user experience wins in the end. I think that the analogy with like Apple is more complicated because Apple is trying as hard as they can to build an ecosystem which really keeps you in, but at the same time it's still a more fair competition, I think. So what they do, at least like you can still swap your headphones for some other headphones, even though like some things don't really work as well with Apple. But I think that's right. That's my ultimate hope for Web3. So we can get the same, email/calendar experience, but across all kinds of products that we're using in a daily life. And I really want, like, say, messaging applications, right? I am a big fan of Telegram, for example, but there are obviously in other countries, WhatsApp is much more preferred. And I really want to have an ability to send messages from one to the other without really like switching my whole workflows to WhatsApp. So yeah, stuff like that, I think, benefits everyone.
Where do you see wallets like space in the industry versus things like messaging, decentralized social media, even like file storage and stuff like that? Like is the wallet, where's the wallet play for that?
Honestly, I think wallet is all of it. And that's why it's like one other reason why I think it's very important that we start on the wallet journey as soon as possible, because I think that's the future of wallets. So I think first off, the wallet as a name is not really a good one, because wallet really suggests something that has to do with money, but I think it's already somewhat visible that it's not going to be about money. It's about all kinds of data that you have, that you own, and you can see that by looking at. So I don't know if you've seen MailChain recently made a splash, and based on like you can send emails to ENS domains, for example, and before that we obviously had some, say, music NFTs as another example. So it's getting much more beyond just financial assets. It's going into, tickets or your ability to, prove that you've been to a certain event, your KYC credentials, your credit scoring, et cetera, et cetera. So it goes much more beyond, and wallet has to understand all of that. So in order to not increase the attack surface, you still want to have one interface that does most of it, or at least understands all of it. So that's why, we think at Zerion that we have to we kind of view ourselves as a guardian angel of the user's private key. So we help not to lose it. We help understand what's in it. And if a new application arises, say, you need to start messaging someone. That's just one more use case that we need to somehow support. And our goal is to decide what is basically evergreen, as we call it, for the wallet, and what is not. So what is not, we can provide access through some kind of browsing. So we have a DApp browser, and it's very popular. Actually, since we released it, it's skyrocketing in number of transactions people do there. But stuff like sending tokens or swapping, this is evergreen as we think of it, because it's whatever the most common use cases. So these should be part of the native wallet experience. And my take is that messaging in the long run is going to be one of the evergreen cases for using your wallet.
And so would you pull that into the wallet and make it part of the application of the wallet? Okay. So you sort of see the wallet expanding out to be something more like WeChat or...
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. I think the really interesting base thing around wallets is that we now have the best possible public-private key encryption or public-private key infrastructure, sort of the personal infrastructure that sort of like the cypherpunks wanted for forever, wanted everyone to have a private key in their pocket that they could they could use and attest to for basically everything, communication, payments, all this kind of stuff. And as a result, we've kind of just done this with wallets. I think it is going to be interesting to see which way it bifurcates in terms of whether or not the wallet is your authentication and the place where authentication and asset control happens, but everything else happens outside of the wallet, or if everything ends up coming into the wallet and being part of it, where you get all marketplaces, all chat, all storage, all of that kind of stuff actually just becomes services of the wallet. I think this is another part of the thin versus fat stack debate around what the wallet is going to be.
Yeah, I think there has to be some. First of all, this is definitely one thought that I also just recently had, that finally this is turning into reality, that everyone is going to have a private key eventually, and we're going to sign all of the messages to all of it is going to be encrypted by our own keys. And I think this is amazing. First off, that it's finally happening. Second, on the other thought, I'm not quite sure how things are going to evolve, obviously. So we could even see that in the recent world, yes, we have the messaging apps like WeChat is winning the user experience, say in China, but at the same time in the US we still have I guess the browsing as the main way of surfing the web and finding things. So I think it can go both ways. So I'm unsure about that one. So it's too early to tell. But at least what I understand is that the wallet has to be smart as the product. So the wallet should understand what kind of assets you own, and help you not make mistakes as well.
So let's talk a little bit about that, making mistakes, because at the top of the show I referenced Ken Rose and him losing $1.4 million worth of NFTs because he blind signed something, right? Yeah. So how does Zerion help with that?
So currently we do not, and I'm being completely transparent. So but we're working on this is going to be part of our upcoming extension release. So stay tuned for that. So we're planning to announce so we're currently in the alpha testing stage. So we're only giving access manually, but we're going to have a more open campaign in March of this year. Actually at East Denver. So if you're around, say hi to us and we'll get you an invite. So speaking of that extension, so we're currently building in the simulation. So basically for every transaction that you're about to sign, we'll present you what's actually going to happen after you sign this. And if you have NFTs that are going to leave your wallet, basically, as a result of this simulation, you wouldn't be signing something like that. So that's the first step. We also going to do checking on the phishing websites. So validating if the website is actually fraudulent or not. and just to, again, like save the user from accidentally going to a phishing website. So these are the small things and small steps we already do, but there's a lot of other things that we're researching into making the whole experience safer.
And for like the other sort of trend that we're seeing a lot at the moment is sort of the anti-private key movement, right? Or as in the anti-seed phrase movement, I should say, not the anti-private key, but the anti-seed phrase movement. So, I can see that the Zerion standard form is with a private key, right? So what are you guys thinking about from the point of view of, social recovery and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah. This might be another, I guess, controversial take, but we've found that seed phrase based wallets were the easiest for now and the most accessible way of getting many people to start using the wallet. And you could see that just by looking at raw numbers. So MetaMask users, it's like over 20 million or so. Then Phantom is like in millions of wallets. Obviously, Trust Wallet with seed phrase, all of them have a significant amount of users versus attempts to some more, I guess, sophisticated recovery or like better, so easier to use, apparently did not get any traction or like very, very tiny tractions to date. So I think the biggest issue is that these solutions are just not ready yet. And that's how we view them at Zerion as well. So we are obviously looking at account abstraction and multi-party computation and how that can work together as well to create the best user experience. I think the biggest problem with all of that at the moment is composability. So ability to essentially use the same account across different chains, and that really suffers with account abstraction. With MPC, it's less of a problem, but MPC has its own complications. So we're researching that. That's all I can say. And I think eventually you're right that we're not going to have seed phrases. And I am looking forward for that world, but I don't want that to be a compromise to actual things that you want to be doing in the crypto space and in the Web3 space.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we spent a lot of time on was this concept of account abstraction. Account abstraction is built into Radix. Every single account is an abstracted account. So there is no such thing as just a public key is your address. You have an account address, and then you have a key that's associated with the account. And it means that it's very easy to do all of those things. But probably the biggest part of our user experience testing, maybe 6 to 9 months, was exactly this problem you were talking about, which was how do you create a user experience onboarding problem that doesn't increase the friction of them getting started, but at the same time doesn't mean that you have to have seed phrases as part of the onboarding process. And we got there. It took us a very long time though, and like there was a lot of false steps and things like Argent and stuff like that. I think have those problems associated with it being complicated from a first user point of view, but they also have the secondary part of them being expensive. You have to pay to set up the account, which I think is also a barrier to entry versus just being able to generate a private key, which again, to make that work on Radix, we had to build it into the ledger itself. We had to make it a feature of the ledger so that it didn't cost to set up the accounts in the first place. Otherwise you get this problem of people being like, no, I'm just trying to use this thing. Why are you trying to charge me just for trying to use this thing, right? And that was really 100%. Difficult. So
I think sorry, just a quick comment on this one. I do feel that this is a very similar kind of like your approach to designing Radix is pretty similar to how we think about designing what wallet should be, because you need to understand what kind of features you want to plug into the protocol versus what kind of features should be built on top by other people. Right. And I think that's exactly the kind of the conversations we have at Zerion, what things we should be providing natively versus what others we can like just give access to through a dApp browser or something. And I think you're right that account abstraction on the protocol level makes a lot of sense. And I think people at Ethereum also recognize that. It's just Ethereum is so massive at the moment. It's very hard to move and stir into the direction that everyone understands, even if everyone understands it's the right direction. So it's going to take time, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to take time, and there's a bunch of complexity in doing it, especially if you want to be backwards. Like, the other advantage of something like Radix is that we don't have to be backwards compatible with all of the things that have happened before, because it's essentially a new ledger. Like, there's some simple state that we need to copy over from our current public ledger, but it's nothing like the gigabytes and gigabytes and billions of dollars that Ethereum is moving. And again, that sort of leads to a much slower development as well. So what are you aiming to achieve in 2023 with Zerion?
It's a good question. We've been thinking, obviously spending the whole of January discussing the goals and plans and roadmaps. So there are a lot of things on the radar. So first off, I think from the overall goal, we obviously want to be joining the largest wallets out there. So I think we have say MetaMask, maybe Trust Wallet, maybe Phantom as the big players, and Coinbase Wallet obviously, and then we have many others. So Zerion is already this upshot and challenger type of wallet. So we really want to solidify on that. And reach into the millions of wallets funded. And I think this is possible to do in 2023. For just the user experience, I think I'm already starting to get this, I'm more and more often using Zerion myself for the things where I would not expect to be using a crypto / even web3. And I'm really, really enjoying that. So whenever I go to the website that has a connect vote button and I didn't even expect that to be there, I'm starting to feel really proud of the industry. So I'm hopeful that we can enable many more use cases and make a lot of people happy users of Web3, so they could say that UX is not broken, and say that things are improving, that we're getting more and more use cases, and people do get what is it all about. And help as many as we can along the way. Outside of that, we're obviously, as I mentioned previously, releasing an extension, which is a big part, I think, of the current, journey of using Web3. And even though it doesn't feel that extensions is the last milestone in this journey. But for the time being, it is what it is.
Right.
That's the best thing we have at the moment.
So the extension is sort of a similar to a MetaMask-esque experience, but hopefully prettier.
It's not just prettier. The big thing is that first it supports as many seed phrases as you want. It allows you it shows you the whole portfolio, all of the NFTs, all of the transactions across all chains. It does automatic switching. It's much, much faster. It's about we've timed it. We've timed, because we know that Web3 citizens, they sign a lot of transactions per day. So if you spend 5 seconds per transaction, that's already a big frustration in your daily workflow. So Zerion is, I think, if I remember, at least 3 times faster when it comes to signing and just opening up the extension. So things like that do matter for people who use it.
That's really cool. So if people want to sort of get involved with Zerion, I'm assuming the best place to get started is your website, zerion.io.
Yeah, it's definitely a good place to start. But we obviously have a large community of people on Discord. So if you're not into so many servers, so you can handle one more, you can definitely jump into Zerion's. We have all kinds of fancy community Web3 building tools that you can get roles for having certain NFTs. So your journey on our Discord is going to be fun. And then obviously Twitter, if you just want to follow the progress and get the most of our announcements.
Awesome. And once they download the Zerion wallet, what is the first thing you suggest they go and use with it? to really get experience of the Zerion difference.
Right. So there are two things I would say. So first, go and claim the Zerion DNA. You're obviously going to get a prompt for that, but Zerion DNA is, you can think of it as a beacon connecting your on-chain experience with Zerion, and you would start generating, you can say, like levels for all transactions that you sign, for the gas you spend across different chains. So for assets you hold, all of that is going to be basically recorded in your own chain history for Zerion. And then second, I would go to, I think the most popular website in the dApp browser that people go to is OpenSea. But let me say, in spirit of my recent experience, just go to sound.xyz and mint yourself some kind of cool song as an NFT and listen to it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So thank you so much for coming on, Evgeny, and best of luck with your browser extension launch, and congratulations with the launch of the wallet. And if anyone wants to try out a sort of incredibly beautiful, well-designed cross-platform wallet, you can do far worse than go to Zerion.io and download it and give it a go.
Thank you so much, Piers. Thanks for having me.
Need more utility, then you better call on these guys. I'm going radical, I'm going Radix, I'm going radical, I'm going Radix. Hyperspeed DeFi, never on a decline. Building the future, I feel like a savage.